What's up, guys? So I'm going to be posting two videos up. This one's going to be about pros and cons of the government giving everybody $1,000. The second video will be explaining the stock options and what premium means. Maybe it make a little bit more sense if I sold it or told it to you in a video context versus just reading it, right? Okay, so the $1,000 thing. Oh yeah, by the way, this video is sponsored by Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. No, I'm joking. So the $1,000. Okay, first and foremost, whenever government gives you something, you got to remember we are government. You know what I mean? So in a sense, let's take a step back and realize this. Right now we're in a time. So this is the pro argument for it. So right now we're in a time where, you know, everyone's life is potentially at risk. I mean, young people might be fine, but everyone has a loved one, man. Everyone has someone who's older or has an underlying condition. No one wants to see them go. Like, forget about the money, man. Like, there's no amount of money that's going to bring that person back. We all agree on that. But when it comes to taxes and stuff, if the government's giving us $1,000, you're kind of getting that money back in a sense, right? Because, you know, just like unemployment, you pay into it every single day. And $1,000 today is not what $1,000 is going to be worth 30 years from now, right? So what do I mean by that? Basically, if we're targeting like, 2 to 3% inflation and we're hypothetically making, we're going to, California, $15 an hour, 30 years from today, when the average person, if you're working right now and you're in your 30s, 35, 40 years old, you're probably going to have to work until 70 to get Social Security anyway. So even $12,000 given to you as a productive member of society today working, if you were like to get paid as a stimulus, that $12,000 will fin you off in these very economically challenging times. But that $12,000 in, 2050, 2051 isn't going to mean jack. I mean, by then, minimum wage is probably going to be around 30, 35 bucks, 40 bucks an hour. It's going to be a week of your actual labor, if that makes sense. So why would they do this? Well, they do this so we don't have an economic catastrophe, right? So imagine how much worse things would be if right now we just said, hey guys, you're on your own, and you're like, oh shit. Because the sad truth is, and maybe this is something that Americans need to wake up to, this is the con of it, is like, hey, you got to be a little bit responsible. You should have a savings for a rainy day, but the more and more we look at our country and the more and more socialist we turn, this is going to be expected of the government to come bail us out. See, we can't have it both ways, right? If you are truly capitalistic and small government and this and that, you can't ask for a handout. You can't ask for health insurance. You got to say, screw it, I'm going to take my chances. And the sad part of it is, even me in my position, I don't think that's what's best for everybody. If we're thinking about everybody as a whole, everyone needs help, man. Everyone needs help. No one gets anywhere on their own, ever. And I remember they laughed at Obama when he said that. And I'm not the biggest Obama fan. Foreign policy, okay, whatever. But I would just look back at it like, why would you make fun of the guy for saying that? It's true. I didn't get to where I was on my own. Hell no. Hell no. I got it because I got the help of my friends and my family that pushed me through every challenge in my life. That, definitely my family that helped me financially. Always going to be indebted to them, right? You, as a regular citizen, you're indebted to your greater society, which you elected these officials to help take care of us. So $1,000 today, 30 years from now, isn't going to mean much, but it's going to mean a lot for us right now. If we're able to sustain you get that $1,000 on top of, whatever benefits you have, unemployment, whatever, and you're able to keep your family fed and you're able to keep a roof over your head and electricity paid and maybe even have a little bit of leisure money, it keeps the economy going. Once this thing does trickle down, we'll be able to get off, jump and running. It's like giving, the best way I can explain it is like not giving you a shot of adrenaline and knowing you're going to crash down. It's like giving you a steady dose. Or worse than that, let's take the opposite spin of that. It's not like injecting you with a bunch of heroin at once and you're like, oh man, I'm going to OD. And no, it's like, okay, we injected you with that with like the, one-time check. And then like now with the little bit of stimulus, we'll start taking it away little by little as the economy starts opening up. So then you're not an addict. That's kind of like my train of thinking. But the main factor here is if we're targeting a 2% to 3% inflation growth, 30 years from today, $12,000 in debt given to our society to sustain our economy, to still be number one when we're out, is a very small price to pay. We have to stop thinking about small pictures and look at the bigger picture, okay? Now let's look at the con of this, because obviously if it was that easy, we wouldn't have a debate. The con is when is enough enough? I'm capitalist. I 110% disagreed with the bailouts of '08, even though now I know logically that's what we had to do to prop the economy. I get it. I understand how the system works. You know, we're built on debt, and we grow out of debt by actually growing, by putting more money into more products and services, and we grow more than we print. I get it. But at my core, I'm like, there's something so wrong about that. You know, like there needs to be winners and losers in the market. Like there's winners and losers. But, you know, this is the time we live in. And the con for that is, well, yeah, maybe $12,000 30 years from now ain't going to be a big deal. But what happens if we rack up another, you know, roughly 10, 20 trillion dollars in debt? Someone's going to have to pay that. And then the bigger question is, can we pay that off even 30 years from now? You're asking a lot of America. And I love America. I'll, you know, willing to die for this country kind of thing. And I'm betting on America always, because I still think it's going to succeed and proceed to just, you know, topple any other person with innovation and growth. But can we really grow 30 trillion or 20 trillion or whatever debt that we print right now? Like, is there going to be another Facebook, Amazon, Google emerging over the next 30 years that is going to double? Because that's what it's going to take, is we're going to have to double to triple our economic output in order to really come close to not paying off the debt. My concern is more managing the debt, right? I mentioned this in an earlier video. Don't worry about the debt. The debt is just, it's a political talking point. I got my card here. If I have a credit card here, well, I think you guys almost saw my number. If I have a credit card here, let's say I had a $100,000 limit. Bear with me on this train of thought. Let's say I maxed it out to 100 grand, but I got all the things I wanted to get. We're not even going to talk about productive debt versus dumb debt, like, you know, dumb debt like buying a car or buying a Rollie or chain or whatever. We're talking about if I had 100 grand, I just boom, put the 100 grand out there and I was done with it. Let's say my APR was like 7 grand a year or something, right? Or 7 grand a year in payments or whatever, right? And let's say next year rolls around and I get a bonus from my company and I'm able to make that $7,000 payment. But then my credit card says, hey, you could, you know, rack up another 10 grand. Then I'm like, oh yeah, screw it. Let's rack up another 10 grand and my payment goes up another 3. But as long as my job keeps giving me more and more money, you know, if I keep growing with wages and everything like that, and what incentive would I have to pay that back? I mean, essentially you have no incentive to pay it off unless you weren't able to get to that next level. And that's hard to think on a human level because we would need to pay that off because we have to buy a house one day and we need credit. But when you're thinking on a country level, why does it matter for the country? Because especially if you're the one printing your own money, like the country's like, okay, that's great. Give us more cheap stuff. Let us keep growing, because we're taking that money now and spending it today, because a dollar is going to be worth today more. A dollar is always worth more today than it is tomorrow. And that's just the truth, because you're able to exchange it. So in that realm, it's like, okay, that thinking is what we're thinking right now. Like, screw it, we'll keep kicking the can down the road. Well, the con is what happens when that 1 year, like your job says, hey, major cutbacks, we're going to take a 5% haircut. Then you look back at your credit card bill and you're like, oh shit, I can't make that payment. You know, that's the scary part, is can America collect enough in taxes to be able to pay off its debt obligation? And not the obligation of the whole $30 trillion or whatever. No, I'm talking about their debt obligation, like their short term. Just like we have monthly credit card statements, the government has monthly, quarterly, and yearly bills that they have to pay. They have to pay interest pretty much on that credit that we borrowed. So the biggest problem is going to come is when we can't pay that interest. And so that's one of those things where it's like, if you grow the debt too much and we can't pay that interest, this thing's going to blow up on itself. We're going to get the same outcome is going to happen, except for it's going to make it a lot worse, because now if we don't pay anyone, at least we know we can make the debt. You know, we can pay the interest. But if we do this and we give everybody $1,000 or $12,000, we might not be able to pay that interest. So that's the con of this thing. And honestly, it's become politicized. It's out of our hands. In my opinion, there always needs to be a happy middle ground, man. Like, I mean, in business and life, I mean, in your relationships with your friends, your family, your lover, your whatever, no one person's always going to be right. There's never such thing as 100% right. And if anyone ever tells you ever, like, I know, if they say those words, I know for sure, you know, or whatever, run 100 miles away, because there's no certainties in life. There's compromises in life, and then there's middle grounds in life. And anyone that lives on that middle ground that's willing to give and take is going to most likely be more successful than the person that's just not willing to budge. And for me, in this situation, there needs to be some type of middle ground. There's no doubt in my mind that, dude, American citizens need help. And if the government, if the people can't help each other at its worst time, then who are we going to be at our best time? You know what I mean? Like, you're defined by your weakest player, right? So the poor and the underprivileged right now, the ones that are suffering, the ones that are hurting, they're the ones that we have to look after the most right now. The people that can take it on the, take it on the chin and keep moving, it sucks, but just like every other time in American history, we're the ones that are going to have to pay the price. Does that mean everyone should get 1,000 in print? Me personally, no. I think there needs to be definitely a middle ground. I definitely think we have safety nets such as unemployment. I like the proposal that instead of $600 a week, that's like ridiculous. Like they're making way more money than they were, working. You don't need that much, but you do need a little bit more than, if it was just the basic unemployment. So I like the plan. I think off the top of my head, it was like an additional $200 a month, which is fine. And it's going to take a lot of us just coming together, like, landlords working with their tenants, creditors working with their creditees, whatever. That's what it's really going to take, because government could just keep printing. But if we don't come to a negotiation individually, then things aren't really going to work out. So those are kind of like the pros and the cons of it. Let's see what Congress does, man. I think a lot is riding on this. And not to get off topic here, but I think it's in the Democrats' best interest to watch the economy implode, just watch everything destroy, because that weighs on the psyche of the individual voter. And that's going to cause them to vote away from the Republican Party, since they're the party in charge right now. If the Republicans could get things even and start getting things better towards the election, then people are going to be more confident in that party's ability to lead them through this, and they'll continue to vote. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this whole thing got politicized, and it'd be really hard now to see a middle ground come to this, because one side wants $200, a week and added unemployment benefits. One side wants like $600 or keep it the same plus checks. A middle ground would be, hey, we'll enhance it, $350, $400 a month, but we're going to do maybe 2 stimulus checks, and that's it. We're not going to do this $1,000 a month every month kind of thing. So, let's see what happens, So those are the pros and the cons. To sum it all up, the pro side of this is $12,000 today. If we spent it, it would probably help us. Maybe most likely it's all an experiment, maybe in the long run, because keep everything afloat, get it open, and 30 years from now, that $12,000 won't mean nothing. And the con of this is, well, that $12,000, if we gave it to every citizen, is still freaking $12,000. And you're talking about probably, so we printed $3 trillion because we gave $1,200. Let's say roughly $3 trillion times 12 is what, $36 trillion. We've doubled the national debt. Yeah, buckaroo, I don't know about that one. So that's the con side of it, is whoa, we would get way astronomically high, and would we be able to meet our minimum debt obligations? So I don't know if about a whole year would work. I definitely think we could probably give out checks for about maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 months without making major detriment to the future, which we've already sunk $3 trillion. If you're in this thing, you might as well be in it. So those are the pros and the cons, and I gave you my opinion on, I think it's politicized. So let's see what happens. I hope you enjoyed this videos, roughly 14 minutes, and give you a little perspective and something to watch for on the news now and the articles when you're scrolling and reading on which way could go what, So anyways, if you like this video, obviously like it, and share it with one person. Help me grow the account. Thanks.